Okay, great. So our cost of equity is 1% plus 11% times 0.78, which is 9.58%. So the cost of equity for Microsoft is 9.58%, right? So we're going to use this 9.58% to discount our cash flow back from the future to today. Okay, so a company's value when you use DCF or discounted cash flow analysis is the sum of all of its future cash flows in today's terms. And in order to talk about today's terms, we have to discount using the interest rate we calculated, or the WACC, which is 9.58%. Okay, fun. Great. So the DCF is basically cash flow in year one that we forecast, which is basically the same thing as net income, right? So we divide it by 1 plus the interest rate, or 1 plus 9.58% to the power of 1. And then we do discount for year 2. And because it's 2 years out, we discount it to the power of 2. And all the way down to 10 years out, right? And then in the 10th year, we also discount what's called the terminal value, okay? So what about years 2025 to infinity? Okay, well, what about those years? How do you forecast that? Don't worry about it. We can do it. It's very, very easy to do. And it's just a very simplistic formula, okay? And so that formula will calculate the terminal value for you, okay? So that's the Lion King. That's Windows 95. I know it's dorky, but how do I make a boring topic somewhat entertaining? All right, so that's what we can do. We can actually use the terminal value formula and discount the cash flow. How? We discount it by our interest rate minus the growth rate, right? So our interest rate is 9.58%. You might say, Chris, wait a second. What if the growth rate into perpetuity, 10 years from now to infinity, is above 9.58%? It's impossible. It can't be. It can't be. And the reason it can't be is because it is absolutely impossible for companies to grow at a very, very high rate into infinity, right? Usually, in the very long run, companies grow in line with US, or if they're American, with GDP, or GDP in whatever country they're based in, okay? Which means a couple percent, and a lot of times less than that, okay? So assume G is our long-term growth rate. We already know R, it's 9.58%. And I'm actually pretty bearish or negative on Microsoft longer term. They missed mobile. They're irrelevant in mobile, and that's the most important desktop we have. So I'm going to assume the growth for Microsoft is 1%, right? And so we can add that to our formula, and then voila, we can discount every single year, okay? See that? We're discounting each year all the way back. And all that stuff added up together gets a valuation of $475 billion, okay? So our third methodology, which is discounted cash flow, implies a valuation of $475 billion, or 25% upside to a target price of $58.50. It's amazing how close that was to my first methodology, despite all those inputs. Okay, anyway, so, there's a better way to do this. I want to show this to you too. This is a real cool trick. So instead of going through all this crazy math, man, what you can do is you can use a formula in Excel, which rocks. And it's called NPV, or the net present value formula, okay? And this does all the math for you. It's a beautiful thing. So here's that formula. So you type in equals NPV, right, in Excel, and then open brackets. And Excel is so awesome that it'll tell you what the parameters are that you should add. And the first one is the rate, and it does it for you. It tells you rate. So you enter in 9.58, and then you hit comma, and then it wants you to highlight all the values. And so you're going to highlight all those cash flow numbers, right? Or net income, same thing, right? And then you add back the terminal value, and it's the exact same valuation we did for our DCF, but in one quick little step, or two little steps. All right, so let's do a quick review of all three of our valuation methodology bottom lines, okay? This is fun. I love this stuff. Valuation number one, our PE target, which I love. I love PE targets 5 years out, was $59, right? And that's about 25% upside from the $47 stock price on Microsoft today. Okay, and it makes sense because that's about 5% upside per year for the next 5 years. Microsoft's a big mature company, so it makes sense that it's going to only grow 5% per year. Okay. Valuation methodology number two is a price to revenue target, which gave us a target price of $63, which is 3.5 times our revenue estimate in 5 years, which is below the industry average of 5 times because Microsoft's revenue growth or earnings growth is only 70% that of the market. which makes sense. It's a slower growth company. And then we did the discounted cash flow analysis, and we got a target price of $58.50. Okay, so let's take an average of all three of those bad boys now. And that implies average of all three is a target price of $60, which is 29% upside in 5 years. Again, my favorite is price to earnings, but you decide yourself what you prefer more. So here's a recap of this class. Valuation and model projections is really not that hard. All you got to do is forecast revenue and make most expenses a percent of revenue. And valuation targets can be in the form of price earnings, price to revenue, or DCF. You can take an average of all three to normalize an error you might have, or just pick one methodology. My favorite is PE. You choose what you want to do. Okay, so please learn to enjoy reading financials like a good book. The more you do this, the more you'll enjoy this. And your competition won't enjoy this. So that sets you aside from this because it's not work. You're passionate about it. You love it. You live for this. So great analysts do their own work. Don't listen to the media or CNBC, please. Turn it off. Never watch it again. Just try to become the best investor you can by doing your own research. And I know a lot of investors that don't live in New York City, and they're much better than a lot of my friends that are investors in New York City. Why? Because they're away from everybody else. They're kind of isolated, and they do their own research, right? They do their own research. Anyway, so that's it for today. Thank you.